My name is Educatedcollins and welcome to my dual class arena guide for 2018. Things have changed since last year's dual class arena, but there are still a lot of exciting combos available. Whether you're getting hit with Ultimate Infestation on turn 1, which is so unfair, trying to live forever with a lifesteal Gorehowl, or, best of all, making new memories by bringing back our old friend Reno Jackson.
We're gonna be rich!
I want to make this transition to dual class arena as smooth as possible. Let's get started. Now, first off, let's hit some of the differences between this year's and last year's dual class arena. I think the most important difference between the two is the removal of Death Knights. Death Knights kind of dwarfed the meta around themselves last year because they were so strong and so common. Due to the bonus to class cards, due to the nature of combining two classes together, you would see a lot more powerful class cards such as Death Knights in Arena, more often than in normal Arena. So if anyone from last year is interested in trying out the event, but does not want to deal with Death Knight spam, fear no more the heat of the Knights, for they are dead. In Arena, good luck in Constructed. Also, speaking of insane class cards, I would be remiss not to mention that Ethereal Peddler is also gone, because there was a new set of expansions this year. Whisper of the Old Gods, One Night in Karazhan, and Mean Streets in Gadgetzan are out. Witchwood and Boomsday are in. And there shouldn't be any extremely busted class-specific cards from the new expansion if we ignore Omega cards. Arena Draft was changed to feature restarting. Another big difference between the two events is that there's a new bucketing system for Arena drafting. As of patch 10.4, each draft in Arena was changed to feature 3 cards of relatively equal power level and could include mixed rarities. This change was made so that choices now require a bit of thought and decision making for more of the picks. Instead of always picking the most powerful card each pick, you pick the best card. There was not really any thought behind it, so it's just they wanted to make it where you want to think a little bit more, have a little more decision, right? Do I go aggressive? Do I pick the tempo card? Or do I go full late game control? And then the last difference I want to talk about is just the state of the arena metagame at the moment. So during last year's event, the win rates of cards weren't so dramatic. For the data I could pull up, the difference between the strongest and the weakest classes was a 3% win rate, which is significant, but understandable in Arena. There's just some classes that just do intrinsically worse, just based on the nature of their hero power or their classes, or just trying to deal with the constructed and the Arena differences. But right now, the difference between the strongest and the weakest classes is nearing 9 to 10%. And there's a real discrepancy between the strongest classes right now, with the best cards and the weakest classes. The weaker classes due to bucket situations or lackluster cards, lackluster combos. The moves are weak, basically. So now for the exciting part. So here's a list of the best classes statistically in terms of win percentages for last year's dual class event. So I use this information to help come up with some conclusions and tips for helping you pick classes better and avoiding some common mistakes during the event. So basically, all things considered, the strategy is to pick classes with really efficient class cards first, and then supplement those classes with a powerful hero power class. So if we look at this list, we can kind of notice a lot of interesting trends. Poor Shaman, poor Warrior. So as first pick, the classes with the most powerful class cards did really well. So Priest, Paladin, Hunter, great first picks, as they had great class cards, but a lackluster hero power, which is actually beneficial since they can be picked first and then removed from the pool. And then you can follow that up with a hero with a better or more consistent hero power that can be chosen to supplement those cards. So another interesting trend is that at first, second picks, as we've noticed, the heroes with the most powerful hero powers all placed at the very, very top. So if we kind of look at consensuses in terms of hero powers, I would say the best hero powers is Warlock, Mage, Rogue, and Druid, right? They generally have the most consistent hero powers, right? One generates card advantage, or they easily affect the board, right? Where, Priest and Warrior being the worst in general, though there's an argument to be made, but I digress. So once again, I repeat, ignore that. The strategy that I would advise is that you first pick classes with really strong class cards and then supplement them with classes that have really good, really safe, really consistent hero powers. With that in mind, let's take a look at the current ranking of heroes in the meta right now. All right. So this data has been taken from HearthstoneReplay.net, which keeps fairly accurate stats of arena win rates, and is a good resource just in case if you're looking to increase your arena knowledge, arena metagame. Something to take a look at, browse through all the cards, and see which cards have good win rates, bad win rates. You might learn a little something. So as we can see, Warlock, Rogue, Warrior, and Druid are the classes doing well right now. They scored a win rate above 50%. And if you're statistically looking to do well, you'd probably pick those classes. Mage, Priest, Shaman, they're doing alright for themselves, and they can be playable, but you might not have an easy as a time if you're picking one of the Elite Four. Hunter and Paladin, while they have good cards, they have really tough buckets and such. Hunter, a lot of their most powerful cards are in the same bucket, which is not good, because you won't get as many copies of those cards in a specific draft, since drafts tend to give you choices from all the different buckets, right? They want to diversify your deck list, right? So since all of their powerful cards are in the same bucket, it's really hard to get their best cards all together in the same draft. And for Paladin, they used to be the best, but they got nerfed in such a way where they're receiving a lot of low tier buckets as in their drafts. So while you can get a lot of good cards, you also get a lot of really sad, really bad cards in their drafts, and it kind of makes them struggle in the metagame right now, being burdened with a larger than normal amount of subpar cards. I personally don't mind, because Paladin's been so strong for so long. What you gonna do? Yeah. With all that in mind, I've created my tier list for this year's dual class event. In terms of class picks, I'm initially going to discuss class tiers and then discuss class combos and strategies afterwards. So I was gonna do a nice little shifting animation, but I tried it, didn't look clean. So just imagine all of the words shifting. Alright. So there's a few things about this list that are a little striking at first, right? Warlock being first as both a first and second pick is interesting. I just think personally that Warlock is extremely powerful and consistent right now due to them having powerful cards and easy access to AoE, right? They've got really powerful cards such as Dreadlord and Omega Agents, while also having a large pool of AoE removal tools like Hellfire and Defile. There's actually a lack of AoE removal in the meta right now due to a lot of classes having their AoE cards in the same bucket. You may get the bucket, but you might not be given the AoE options. And if you go through a draft without getting the buckets but not the AoE, you're really going to struggle. So Warlocks, they have the benefit of having a lot of AoE options in different buckets, so it's very easy to grab AoE of some kind in their class. And having access to AoE is really important, as Arena is a board-focused game. mode, and Warlocks have the easiest time doing that, as well as having the strongest class cards. So it's kind of encouraging me to make my decision as Warlock having the #1 spot in both picks, regardless of when you pick that class. So next interesting point is that Warriors fairly high compared to last year. I think the Boomstay expansion really helped Warrior a lot in terms of being a consistent force in the arena. If you're just coming back to arena you're not aware, since the Boomstay expansion, Warrior's gotten a lot of great cards, such as Warpath, which is really the key in being able to try the more control archetype. Super Collider, Dynomatic, things like Omega Assembly. So they've got a lot of value cards, a lot of cards that can 2-for-1, 3-for-1 if used correctly. Those cards have been really good for helping Warrior play the slower game and outvaluing the opponents, removing anything they play, and then following up with a big taunt, maybe a Primordial, maybe an Eton or something, and then just outvaluing your opponents card for card, winning the matchup that way. And so I think as a first pick, Warrior is actually a really powerful, really likely option for you. As a second pick, it's a lot lower for me, since you don't really want to have their subpar hero power in an event like this, where people are going to have Warlock hero powers, Rogue hero powers, Druid hero powers, Mage hero powers. You really don't want to boggle yourself down with something like a Warrior. It is still a good class to play. So next up, we've got Druid. They've got a good removal tool. They were powerful last year. They're still going to be powerful this year, right? They've got good removal tools with Swipe, with Starfire. They still got Ultimate Infestation. Right? They've just, and also, even if you can go aggressive as well, right? They also have Savage Roar. If you drop a worm down, they kill the worm but can't kill the 1/1s. You can hit them with a Savage Roar for 20+ damage and win that way. So it's a great class to pick up, rated very highly. Regardless of what playstyle you can go, you can adjust, and just a good class to pick in this event mode. Next up, we've got Rogue. Rogue's a good class just because a lot of their class cards are extremely potent, right? They've got Valspawn, they've got Sap, they've got Plague Scientist, Elven Minstrel, lots of value, tempo, powerful cards. Just lets you grab the board and keep the board. You want to grab Rogue, preferably, you can grab it first, but you want to grab it preferably as a second pick, because it allows you to make use of their hero power, which is one of the best ones, and it also you can make use of cards like Hench Clan Thug, which is really good with Rogue, and Envenom Weapon is activated, and Deadly Poison is also not useless in the class if you have the Rogue hero power. So good class to pick up, recommended. So next up, we've got Priest. Now, Priest is fairly high as a first pick, even though they're not doing super well right now. If you look back at last year's ranking, Priest was #1. Even though they weren't doing so well in general at the time, it's just that Priest has a lot of strong class cards they can take advantage of in a slow or reactive game with Mind Control, with Shadow Madness, Cabal Shadow Priest, or even Psychic Stream. They can just win the late game out with their value options and deny you from ever coming back. So even though they aren't statistically the strongest, because of their performance last year and how you can get a very good control deck with double class cards in the pool, I'm putting them a little bit higher than maybe expected. And in terms of second pick, you don't really want a Priest because their second pick performance wasn't strong last year, and their hero power isn't really enticing, isn't really powerful, one of the weaker ones. So not a fan of second pick Priest. First pick Priest is doable. Next up, we have the Paladin. I mentioned earlier in this video that Paladins are suffering with common low buckets, right? I'm not exactly sure how it's going to translate in dual class. So Paladins may get a lot better if they stop receiving lots of low buckets picks when they're merged with another class. They have great cards, right? Steed, Vine Cleaver, Silver Sword, but until we know how picking their class affects their buckets, I wouldn't recommend them. I'd avoid them, but they're still an okay choice. Hunter is interesting in that they get statistically above average class cards due to their hero power not affecting the board in any way. So this can really be a benefit in dual classes. There's a ton of really powerful class cards in Hunter that can get borderline overpowered if they're utilized in other classes. Hunter's Marks is a good example. Play Dead, Unleash the Hounds, there's a lot of them. There's a lot of powerful combos. So both Paladin and Hunter's rankings, they're mostly due to their performance last year. They did really well last year, and even though they're struggling right now, I think they can both be really good supplemental classes. Next class we have Mage, being fairly low in my rankings as first, but even though they're a pretty good class and have really strong cards. So the reasoning for this decision is that last year Mage was one of the stronger classes last year, but in terms of their performance, in terms of how they placed on the tier, they didn't really do that well. And I think the reason for that is that they don't really have insane minions as a class right now. They have insane spells, insane removal. They have Meteor, Flame Strike, Blizzard, Polymorph, great removal options. But when it comes to minions, the best minion is still Water Elemental still. I would say Leyline is contesting it, but it's like above average 4-drops. Basically, nothing game breaking, no Omegas, nothing like that. So another issue with their strategy, with their cards, is that they're all very synergistic, right? There's a lot of secret synergy in Mage, there's a lot of elemental synergy in Mage, free synergy even, right? So if you're running double classes, you're not going to be able to hit that consistency with your synergy. A lot of people get trapped or swayed by maybe a first pick secret into a Kirin Tor and try to go that direction, and they find that they're getting the other classes and it may not work out as efficiently as in your head you're like, this will work. And then you do the draft and you're like, this did not work. So I don't really think that strategy is going to work super well in this event, so I'm bumping them down the pick order because of that. But as a second pick, however, they have a fantastic hero power, one of the best, and their class cards are decent. So if you can supplement this class with a class with really powerful class cards, as a second pick, I think they're a totally fine choice. But I'm not impressed by their first pick reliability currently, so those are my reasonings for that. And then finally, we get to Shaman. Shaman. They really got the butt end of the stick. I recommend them as something not to pick. If you look at the last year's rankings, you'll see Shaman had good cards, but they just did not perform at this type of event. It might be something about overload cards or their hero power synergy that makes their win rate not as high as it could be. And this year, I don't really think they're doing much better right now. It seems to me that they're having consistency issues, getting very good decks. A lot of the Shamans that I face, they kind of, if they are going to win, they kind of went through some kind of cheese with the legendary spell off of Dynamo, or they have some kind of insane aggression into Bloodlust, or really consistent elemental deck. It's not super common where you get a really nice, crisp Shaman deck right now, so I don't really feel like they're something you want to take for this event in terms of consistency. I think they can be very fun, they're a nice meme class, but in terms of consistency, I'm not really liking their hero power, I'm not really liking their class cards, I'm not really liking a lot of their consistency powerful plays or consistency powerful combos. It just feels bad to be them, but it happens to the best of us, I think. Even if you get knocked down in life, like the Warrior in past years, right? Next year you can climb up, get some new expansions, get some new cards, fight to stay strong, stay at the top. So I'm rooting for you, Shaman. Used to be one of my favorite classes, but things have changed. But that is life. It's a growing process. Wow, look at the time. Well, that's going to be it for me today. I hope you guys took some notes, got something out of this. This is kind of an introductory series for dual class, just so that you aren't tripping on your own foot when you get started and you have a kind of general idea of what classes to pick and what you should be doing with them. But take care of yourself, don't neglect your family, take care, drink some water, make sure you don't go crazy during this rushing season, and have a great time. And take care, and see you in the next video.